almost home, close to home in Dallas. We've had a very busy week traveling around the state this week. Catherine, thank you so much for being here and for your very nice introduction. And it was so wonderful to walk into this room and to see you all so busy on the phones making calls on behalf of our campaign, but not just on behalf of the campaign, on behalf of the future of Texas and the direction that we will take. And I cannot thank you enough for your hard work and effort and participation to help us have an outcome on November the 4th that represents real people in this state.
Thank you.
We are so close to it that you all, of course, remember on April 17th of last year that fire that broke out at a West fertilizer company. And the facility was made up of a few small buildings and a warehouse where wooden bins of seed and chemicals were stored. And among them, we learned later, was ammonium nitrate, a chemical used to make dynamite. 20 minutes after the outbreak, the blaze ignited that ammonium nitrate, of course detonating it and causing an explosion that took the lives of 15 people and injured over 200 more. The blast left a 93-foot wide, 10-foot deep crater. It destroyed homes, an apartment complex, it destroyed a nursing home, and severely damaged 2 schools, a middle school and a high school that were immediately adjacent to the facility. Reports later ruled that the explosion was entirely preventable. Had there been a sprinkler system to suppress fire along with other measures to contain the ammonium nitrate, such as fireproof containers, the explosion might never have happened. And what is just as chilling is that the West Fertilizer facility is only one of at least 100 facilities in Texas that store very large amounts of ammonium nitrate. And of those facilities, disturbingly, half of them store it in flammable wood frame structures. 2 years ago, 10 of them were right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and at least one of them was within a mile of Bullock Elementary and Harmony Science Elementary. These are dangerous chemicals, and we know they have a history of exploding, as we've seen in West. We know where some of them are, but we don't know where all of them are. And Attorney General Greg Abbott, of course, recently ruled that we don't have a right to know where they are. And make no mistake, Texans deserve to know where these dangerous chemicals are being stored. We deserve to know if they are next door to where we grocery shop. And of course, parents deserve to know if they're near a child's school. Small business owners deserve to know if explosives are located next to a place where they've invested their life's work and their life saving. To add insult to injury, Mr. Abbott told hardworking Texans to, quote, drive around and ask facilities if they're housing those dangerous chemicals. And if you watched the news reports on this in the last few days, you saw that even the media working very hard to drive around and ask these facilities was unable to get answers from these companies about what they're storing there. And of course, we also know and have learned through the media that Mr. Abbott accepted thousands and thousands of dollars and the use of a private plane from Koch Industries, which owns at least one of these chemical facilities in Texas, and benefits from his ruling to keep hardworking Texans in the dark. Texas standard cannot be to accept money from the insiders who want to keep these facilities under wraps and then send folks driving door to door asking blindly about dangerous chemicals. Mr. Abbott's refusal to give hard-working Texans the information that we need to protect our families shows us, again, that he is not fit to be our governor. Over and over, time and time again, he has given us a glimpse of what Texas would be like under his watch. We saw it when he took hundreds of thousands of dollars from the predatory payday lending industry, an industry that I have spent the last 6 years of my time in service in the Texas Senate fighting tooth and nail to regulate so that they can stop taking advantage of so many hardworking Texas families, military families, teachers. They bragged recently in the Forward Star Telegram that teachers were their #1 customer. Nurses and other hardworking families who find themselves falling victim to these predatory loans during times of financial stress. After taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from those companies, Greg Abbott gave them the green light to charge, in many instances, upwards of 1,000% interest rates to Texans who can then no longer afford to pay the loans back. And we saw it again when he tried to force one of his own employees to lie under oath in order to tarnish the reputation of a political opponent. And when she refused, he fired her. Texas is better than that. Our government should be more responsible and more transparent than that. And a candidate for governor should have more concern for the people of this state that he wants to run than to let them sleep next door to dangerous explosives and not only not say a word about it, but actively work to hide where those explosives are. Mr. Abbott is not working for you. He's not working for us. He is working for other insiders at the expense of the safety of hardworking Texas families. And even though the easiest way to fix this problem would be for him to reverse the ruling he made that started this whole mess in the first place, we know he's not likely to do that. Right. Dallas, I am in this race because I believe in fighting for hardworking Texans, not against them. And as your governor, I will designate public disclosure of hazardous chemicals as an emergency item and ask the legislature to take it up and consider it within the first 60 days of our coming legislative session. I will work with the legislature and with first responders to strengthen the Texas Community Right to Know Act by requiring the state to make the location of chemical storage facilities available to the public and signing that requirement into law. And I will work with legislators and first responders and communities to develop a simple, user-friendly system to publicize this vital information instead of holding it. These policies have been successfully implemented in Louisiana and Arkansas, and Oklahoma even posts hazardous chemical locations online in an interactive map. But Texans don't just follow others' examples. We lead the way, and we can lead the way on this issue too. For the last 14 years, and we all know who's been in charge for the last 14 years. When we've faced times, and we've faced plenty of them, when Austin insiders have tried to shut us out, we've sucked it up, we've held it in, we've kept working to make sure our families could one day live in a state where our leaders served them and not the other way around. For 14 years, Austin insiders have ignored our concerns instead of addressing them. They've taken our votes for granted instead of earning them. But in just under 4 months, that era of inside backroom Texas politics is going to come. And before you mark your ballot, and as you're talking to people on the phone, and as you knock those doors as part of your good work in this campaign, I hope you'll ask yourself, and I hope you'll ask them to consider as they're in the ballot booth, who will fight for me? Who will fight for my family? We don't only face a choice between two different candidates. We face a choice between two starkly different paths in this race. And I will tell you, Dallas, that if we are going to win this election in November, we've got to stop being afraid that we will lose it. Parents and teachers and business leaders, workers and members of both parties want these backroom policies to change. They want this policy on hazardous chemicals to change, and the only thing standing in the way of that right now is Greg Abbott. I would ask that the Attorney General think about hardworking Texans the next time that he picks up his pen to endorse a policy that could bring harm to us and the lives that we've built here. I would ask that he think about the families who were impacted by the West explosion, that he would think about his own family, about all of our families, about every single person who's working day in and day out, hoping that what they're doing isn't in vain. On an April day, 67 years ago, there was a cargo ship carrying thousands of tons of ammonium nitrate. At 12 minutes past 9, a fire caught the ship's load, and the ship exploded. Chunks of it flew thousands of feet into the air and landed on buildings and people. And the 1.5-ton anchor torpedoed more than 2 miles before it hit the ground and embedded itself 10 feet down. Homes were flattened and fires raged for days, and when the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department tried to douse the flames, the ship was so hot that the water from their hoses simply turned to vapor. 3,500 people were injured, and over 600 people lost their lives or were never found. The next day there was another explosion, but in the middle of this chaos, true to who we are as Texans, 2 Texas doctors, Virginia and Truman G. Blocker Jr., treated patients and wrote injury reports using their own home for some of the work. They dedicated some of the time from their lives to help people that they didn't know and probably would never see again. And theirs is just one example of the way that we in Texas throughout history have done our part. We Texans also deserve leaders who will do their part as well. Yes. And let me be clear, there is no gray area here. There is no logical or reasonable or acceptable excuse, and we've heard plenty of them from Mr. Abbott when it comes to protecting our families. The only question is, how soon can we make this right? Yeah. And when I am governor, I will. I will fight for you every single day. Just as I fought for my community those 9 years on the Fort Worth City Council, just as I have fought for the people I have the privilege of representing in my 6 years in the Texas Senate, just as I fought when I stood to stop $5.4 billion in cuts from our classrooms, from classes becoming overcrowded, from teachers being laid off, from schools being closed, just as I've fought for families against predatory loans, just as I've fought for our veterans to make sure that they receive the services they deserve and the jobs they need when they return from serving us overseas. These are examples of the things that I believe in and that I know you believe in, that people ought to be able to gain something through hard work, that their families ought to have opportunities for tomorrow, that health care ought to be something that all Texans can proudly say they have, and that Medicaid expansion that women can be paid equally for equal work, and that their health care asking you to keep working to help us make that happen. We are entering, of course, in fact, we're dead in the middle of the hot days of a Texas summer. And the work is going to be hard. And there will be days when that sweat is rolling down.
Good luck.